Hey, everybody. This is the weekly Runecast for the week of October 12th, and it is flying by. And I'm in absolute disbelief that we're this far into the year, let alone this far into October. And this is yet again an I don't know when I'll be publishing it publicly again. That is the part that takes so much time to do. And I just have not had the spoons to do it all recently. I really enjoy doing the Runecast. I really enjoy sharing it with y'all, but I don't know when I'm going to get to that part of it. And that means ultimately that you don't get an email reminder because that happens through my website when I publish it to the website, and it means that public people basically don't have any Runecast at this point, but that's just a concession I have to make. This week, we move into Wunjo until the 28th of this month, which I know this one looks a little bit like Tortoise. I promise it's not. There is a sure enough Tortoise in this set. It's just the way that that person chose to create the rune. Wunyo is the last rune of the first et, and it's the culmination of the experience of how we're souling in form, and not just how, but really situating into the reality that we are, that we have the agency to make choices around how we are in form, and we're learning what our personal limitations are around that and our personal joys are around that. I think the first et is, for the most part, really benevolent, really sweet, and offering this picture in sort of a safe place, almost like happy place sort of space for what life can be for humanity. And maybe all of form, I don't know, but I know that other beings have their own sets of runes, and so I make the assumption that this one is for humanity. But the first et is the place where we're learning the ropes of how to be here and what here is in relationship to us. And so by the time we get to Wunyo, we're having this experience of how to put it all together in the best way possible. It doesn't necessarily mean that it stays together that way. It doesn't necessarily mean that the best way is accessible all the time, or that we even have the best way as one of the options all the time. But we gain a relationship with understanding that there is a mechanism by which we use our agency to do stuff. And that mechanism is largely determining relationship, how we're in relationship with the things we come in contact with throughout our life and our experiences. And Wunyo is the place where that is working on all cylinders. It's the place where our relationships are accessible and known, and we're engaging them in a way that is beneficial to everybody. There's interdependence happening, and there's most definitely a sense of belonging happening by the time we get to Wunyo. The rune best for working with Wunyo. Let's see what we have. Oh, we have Soolo. Yeah, it's holding itself. Soolo is a phenomenal rune to pair with Wunyo, and one of the reasons it's very cool is because it's the last rune of the second et. They're the highest notes of the entire Futhark, and they both have this preparatory note that sets us up for what's going to follow. Not just follow these runes directly, but in the next et that's coming up. So when we work with Solo, we're talking about how we realize what we have, the benefits that we carry, the privilege that we carry, and how we share that in community, how we share it in just collective awareness, period. Solo is the pay it forward rune in the way that I look at it. It's the sun recognized as the life giver of the planet, and it gives us life so that we may shine on others. The sun shines on us so that we may shine on others. So there's this experience in Soolo that is paying it forward, that is what we give to others based on what we have and what our capacity and capability is. That paired with Wunjo is pretty fantastic. This is a really, really brilliant rune cast to have in a very difficult time. And I feel like because of that, it's very hopeful. And even when I said that just now, I feel like the cavalcade, the off-planet support that has been rushing to be able to give us what we need right now is like a big hell yes. And it's been interesting because our experience of Gebo was a little more just on the edge of the shadow side than usual. And for that reason, I wasn't really sure what to think going into Wunyo. Gebo has been a little bit draining, which it had very much a what are you contributing tone to it the couple of weeks that we were with it. So maybe that is par for the course. But this is just remember the resources that we have. Remember the joy that we are capable of, not just experiencing, but creating in the world, and how we are still ultimately responsible for being able to give that to others. That maybe perhaps is our pay it forward. And I feel like this is also a reminder from our spirit allies, from the cavalcade, from whomever you experience as your spirit allies, to come to them when you need things. And that's a fine line. That's a challenging thing for me to say because I've spent a lot of the last few years expressing how much we lean on spirit allies when we are supposed to be doing what we're asking them for. Like they can't help us with emotional regulation. They can't help us with things that are boots on the ground, have to have a human in the driver's seat to get it done. They help us by holding us while we get those things done. They help us by cheerleading and giving us the resources to get those things done. So maybe that's on our list of things to ask for this week. What space do we need our allies to hold for us? What do we need the elements to be able to transmute or death walk or give to us so that we can do the part that is our job to do? The direction that speaks to being able to best create space for us this week while we're in Wunyo is, for me, this is right. It is east or that side, Austri, and in my cosmology, east is water. It is specifically Atlantic Ocean and all of the culture that presents home life around that. And that ocean component for me is home. All of life emerged from the ocean and all of life returns to the ocean. So it represents the foods along that tidewater area that grew the food that I ate, and it speaks to ecosystem and home and literal nurture. So when this direction comes up in casts, think about what home means for you. What is most sacred and embodied for you? Where does your body feel best? Where does it feel most at ease without even having to work for it? And consider what the components of that are that you might be able to recreate in the space where you live if they're not the same place. Perhaps East will be able to help you do that this week, and that will most definitely contribute to your joy. I don't have a specific element that's coming up for this week. And I feel like what that indicates is work with your elements to figure out what one or ones most benefit you this week. And interestingly, when I asked if there was anybody else who wants to join this cast, what came up was the human heart. And we haven't had the human heart come up in a while. Oops, I smushed somebody. I'll put it there. The human heart is vital to our survival on multiple levels. It literally keeps our blood circulating so that we can live. It is ideologically the seat of our compassion, the ability to give and receive unconditional love. And it's also the intersection of our upper and lower energy bridges, meaning it draws from both reason and emotion and from our experience as a form and soul. And because of this intersection, the heart can be vulnerable and we have to have cultivated really strong relationship with our logic and our feelings for it to be healthy. And as the intersection of our being, the challenge of heart is to accept ourselves as whole on all levels. And I feel like that is pretty on point for the experience of joy this week. It's not easy to experience joy. And a lot of times when I bring up the challenges of joy or just bring up joy, period, there's like half the room lights up and the other half shrinks down a little bit. And those are both, to me, very on point reactions to joy because joy is light and it is this lifting experience. And if you haven't had much opportunity to experience joy, it's also it also dredges up shame and it dredges up grief because either you have known it and you don't know how to find it now, or you've never felt it and you don't know how to find it at all. I found myself in that position. I guess it's probably been about 15 years ago now. I had a therapist who just push joy. Where do you find joy? What are your memories of joy? And I'm like, I got nothing. And I really had to soul travel back into my body's experience of joy in childhood. And I found this one split second memory on the tilt-a-whirl at the county fair with my cousins when I was like, 7, 8 years old. And it literally was like a split second, but it was that smell of the fair of like hot dogs and cotton candy and dirt up your nose and your hair blowing all over the place and not sure if you're having a blast or you're going to throw up. Like just absolutely fantastic sheer joy. And I had to go back and visit that memory over and over to be able to map the feeling of joy into my body. And then I could recognize joy when I experience it. And I could call that feeling up on demand when I wanted to feel it, even if I wasn't experiencing joy in my everyday life. There's a lot going on here about home, about relationship, about how we have to be right in balance with and aware of what is significant to us in terms of feeling joy, feeling bliss. And I would imagine that's challenged for just about everybody right now. Hold yourselves carefully, but do take yourself into this territory while we have Wunjo as the half-month rune holding us to be able to do this. I say this frequently in the rune cast, but just because we're in a half-month rune doesn't mean we're doing that thing right now. It means we're re-examining how we're in relationship with that thing and what we might need to do differently to be in better relationship with it. And so while we're in this space together is a really great time to do that with this rune. I don't have a particular season coming up either. I feel like working in the season that you have right now is appropriate. And here we are just getting these little preambles of wild hunt gusts of breeze, and it's been really nice. Also, it was already a little bit on the scary side. You know, our season here changes usually because of a hurricane. We move into the next season because of a hurricane, and it just kind of always has that overtone of what's really going to happen, what's really going to come out of this. And even though it's not comfortable, it feels appropriate to progressing into the dead time. The Galder that we're working with this week includes Wunjo, Wunjo, Win, and Sowelo or Sowelu, So, Sol, Solwi, Solhi, Sig, Sigel. How you pronounce the runes is important for feeling the resonance in your body. What we're going for is that vagus nerve stimulation and galdering the runes in a way that you feel the resonance of the runes in your body. This is how the runes came together for me. Wunyo soli, 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 wunyo soli. That Galder feels celebratory to me. It feels like one that I could do to lift myself up when I need to. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah. I would love to hear how the Galder works for you. I hope you're doing well as well can be in this time, and thank you for all you do.